What I foresaw in the early 1990s as an opportunity in what we then called electronic editions was, I think, little more than a rush of blood to the head. It was simply this, that we could do more, that we could put more in there. What we wanted to put in was a fuller account of the sources which we as print editors had had this privileged access to, but had had to provide a highly synoptic and abbreviated account of in our printed editions, because print could only contain so many pages. So we had to produce ingenious forms of textual apparatus which dealt with versional change by a highly elliptical form of notation. The problem is very few people could use it satisfactorily. What we wanted to do was provide a more direct access to those sources on which we were reporting, because effectively a scholarly edition is a report or is an argument about those sources.
Scholarly editions done in print, because of the economics of print and the limitations on space, tended to gravitate toward a single text, and we aren't faced with that same limitations. Economics still comes to bear on electronic projects, of course, but it's a different kind of economics, and if you're fortunate, you can do things that just wouldn't have been possible in print.
As a textual scholar, the most important thing for me is the way that I don't see the text anymore as just the final product, but with much more depth, like seeing the source code and all the steps up to the point where we reach the moment where we can publish it online. It's a completely other way of conceiving text. I mean, that's the most fascinating part of it for me. All of a sudden, it's not just this block I see on the page. It has so much more behind it. So to me, this is the most impact the whole thing has had for me, for my understanding of what I'm doing as a researcher. Just understanding that it's not just this superficial layer, but all of the layers together.
We're finding simpler ways of proceeding so that our readers can, or our users can, have that more direct access to the original materials, both in facsimile and in transcription, and then in comparison, or collation as it's called, and then in the commentary that the editor writes on that history of change, or versional change.
One thing that is very important to me is that in print editions you would not talk about the way the edition was made. You would not talk about the fact that it took 10 years, about the fact that so many people were involved. In the end, you have the book and you have the main editor on it, and that's it. In digital scholarly editions, we actually give credit to everybody, and the whole workflow through which the edition is taking shape is being acknowledged. So you document this workflow, and the way the project has been managed is also part of the way you will evaluate it in the end. And I think it can change the way we look at print editions also.
The scholarly edition of the past tended to be circumscribed because of some of the things I've been talking about print and the economics of it, and the focus was on the text itself and creating this idealized object often that might not have had a historical life, but was the thing that the editor believes that the writer actually wanted to come into existence. But in this new space, we can experiment and remake the edition, and it may be remade so fundamentally that edition may not even actually be the best word for it.